Ah, yeah, you know what that sound means. It is the social distance drinking club Whiskey Wednesday. So apparently Ledford is drinking whiskey out of a can.
I,
We are to be believed. I like to believe here.
you know what? The Foley artist's responsibilities don't take a day off just because we change the alcoholic medium, okay?
That's fair. You sacrifice that beer for the open. Very noble of you. Also, it's Whiskey Wednesday, and if y'all missed it, Peloton talk, because our friend Brett Barry has joined Adam and I in the Peloton family, and he's better than me.
We can say he's better than us. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to also say that. But yeah, I came to the terrible realization that someone younger and fitter who exercises more regularly and has better sleeping and eating habits is also better at Peloton.
Don't underestimate a competitive person who has not been able to compete athletically for the better part of 14 months to have something that is mildly competitive as motivation as well for me personally.
Yeah, but there was the ride I did today that, Brett, you did. I was beating you for the first 10 seconds of the ride, and that felt damn good. I was doubling him up.
Yeah, stop the steal, call the count right then.
I'm not going to say I didn't go really, really hard in the first 10 seconds so I could get a higher score just to take a picture of that and send it to you. I will not say I didn't do that.
I had a friend who in road bike world, like he did his first criterium, which is like a lapped loop event. And you basically go for a certain amount of time and they tell you when you're getting close to the end. And so he was so excited and he just like blasted out front and like led the pack for everyone except for the last like 2 laps because everyone else was staying tight and managing their energy and drafting off each other. And then they got close to the end and like everybody who passed him was like, "Hey, thanks, buddy. Good job. You look great out there." And then he was almost the last place finisher. And I felt bad, but it was a lesson that I learned from his mistake.
Ah, yes, there you go. Like the star student you are.
And by the way, I would just like to, call myself out as the person that is now a member of all of the workout cults between Peloton, CrossFit, and yoga. So I am that fucking guy.
I will drink to that.
I'll say, hell, you're still a team sports guy, Brett. Well, COVID notwithstanding.
Yeah, and the sad thing is I hurt my finger playing basketball a few months before COVID really happened. So I was out of commission for even longer than the pandemic from a basketball standpoint. So that's been hard on me. Better on my knees.
Mission, like with a hurt finger, I feel like you could walk that one off pretty,
Well, when it's your shooting hand and you still can't straighten it 15 months later and it's swollen still AF and you have a torn ligament in it, Adam, that quiet whisper air quote is going to work real well on the audio only version of this show.
Hey, if you're listening via podcast, thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate it, and you'll never know what the hell I just did.
But it was perfect. Obviously, we don't have Yusuf today. He's traveling, but he is watching the show. He says, whiskey, this Canada Dry Club soda is really hitting the spot on my 4-hour flight. That's some pretty good Wi-Fi to be able to watch the show on the plane.
Seriously, that's amazing. But I think it's probably worth mentioning why our most celebrated alcohol imbiber is not imbibing alcohol at the moment.
Religious reasons?
Religious reasons. Just in case Yusuf's listening on podcast. Yeah, no, so it is Ramadan right now, and our boy Yusuf observes Ramadan for a lot of different reasons. There is a religious component, but certainly there is a humanitarian and there is a charitable pillars that are observed as well. So salute to you. I wouldn't do it, but we appreciate your sacrifice and what it represents for why you're doing it. So thanks, buddy.
That's a much better explanation than I came up with. Good job on that one.
Adam Green was like religious reasons, something.
I don't do religious reasons for pretty much anything. So, I assume it's all encompassing. But guys, it is Whiskey Wednesday. We're going to have Page Denny from Neatly on the Rocks on the show later. Looking forward to that conversation. I know we've all shared whiskey with Paige in the past, so looking forward to learning more about what she's been up to and all that. But I guess we can start off with the way we're supposed to start off is what are you drinking? We'll go Brett Berry.
So we get the whiskey time. So I started with some Eagle Rare. It's a bourbon whiskey, but it is delightful. I don't have much left in my bottle, and it's my first time using my new fancy whiskey glass. That is also pleasant.
That is a fancy whiskey glass.
Although, Brett, hold it up again. No, sorry, the glass.
Ah, yes.
It kind of looks like a Glencairn glass, except for like you're watching it on the wrong aspect ratio on your TV. Like it's just way wider than I was expecting.
I get that a lot.
I was like, don't you dare, that's what she said.
Mr. Redford, what are you drinking?
So side beer is the good old Button Crusher. Last weekend, actually gave it our best effort to roast a pig. Never did that before. So grabbed some light lagers because we knew it was going to be hot during the day. It ended terribly. That's a story for another day. But the whiskey of choice today is good old Dorado from Tucson's own Whiskey Del Bac. That was supposed to look easy when I...
Oh, that's what we're keeping it on. You did it. That looked great.
And I don't actually have any great whiskey glassware, but this old brewery anniversary glass kinda, sorta looks like it. So we're gonna go with that.
And Del Bac, that is Spanish for of the Bach.
God damn it, Brett.
All right, I'm just going to ruin all this now. I'm drinking this Adventurous Stills Fossil Creek whiskey.
Oh, nice.
I don't have good glassware for anything like whiskey. I'm just doing this glass that it came with an old glass set, like actual adult glassware, and I feel like it works for whiskey. I like mine on the rocks, as you can tell. And this actually we got when we had Adventurous Stills on. Like that's where I got this one from. And like I'm trying to do the whiskey for guitars here. I have a few behind me that I might also open. We'll see how the night goes. But yeah, like one thing I like about whiskey, you guys, is whiskey. No, like it's similar to beer. Like there's so much out there, and there's so many different kinds, and it really is such a palate type of thing, Like to be able to differentiate between what you're drinking and the different styles. Like it really is. There's a lot of nuance, I think, to whiskey that may not be in certain beers, right? Like yeah, you can have different adjuncts in a stout, but whiskey, it feels like to me anyway. And tell me if I'm wrong. I'm sure you will. But I feel like there's a lot of nuance in it.
I mean, I feel like we're about 20 seconds away from a classic Adam Green. I'm getting tasting notes of deliciousness comment.
Yeah. How do you like it? Boy, the whiskey character really barrels through on this one, you guys. No, Adam, you are exactly right. I think that it is a more mature man or woman's game than beer, just because beer offers, especially in craft, we've always had domestic lagers that taste like nothing, and the best ones you can get taste closer and closer to nothing, and that's like a vodka analog, I would say. But like whiskey, like beer, we have fruit smoothies that have, I don't even know if they have beer in them anymore. And we all acknowledge that, and they're delicious. But there's some stuff that you can hand somebody, and they don't ever have to pretend that they're drinking something challenging. But whiskey takes a second sip. You have to sit there and go, I'm drinking poison, and I like the flavor of this poison, and here's some reasons why this poison tastes better than that poison.
I'm really looking forward to the Drecker Distillery fruited whiskey batches coming out.
You know what? Yeah, no. That's not okay.
See, Brett doesn't know that secretly Drecker has been 99 bananas all along.
All right, we got a couple of people are drinking with us tonight. Ryan Paul, Russell Reserve Magnum's pick, vanilla and tobacco bomb, nice pour. That just sounds wonderful. Our friend Mankey is finishing a Tombstone Hop Tub Triple IPA. And we virtually twisted his arm into drinking some Redemption Barrel Proof High Rye behind this.
Oh, some Redemption.
Do we privilege check our viewers? Is that a thing?
I like it. I like it. Ooh, what's our pal of the show and greatest human being alive, Sam Frazier, gonna do here?
Balcony's lineage. Balcony's lineage.
Oh, you nailed it, man! You totally nailed it.
Balcones. Duvet lineage. What is it? How do you pronounce that?
I just like that you're really gonna commit to lineage.
It's like, who's gonna tell him?
Woo!
You know, like what you were saying though earlier, how like whiskey takes that second sip and you have to kind of realize that you're drinking poison and you like it. And I will say, I've only recently gotten into whiskey, and I say this is like, I don't know whiskey, but I've started to enjoy it more and more. And I realized that when I would drink whiskey before, I'm like, ooh, this is kind of rough, and I don't drink it that fast. And I had to teach my brain, like, that doesn't mean I don't like it. It just means it's not a beer. Like you're going to generally drink it more slowly. So for me, it was kind of like that recognition of like, I'm not drinking it slow because I don't like it. I'm drinking it slow because I can't drink this shit fast. And once I did that, I'm like, okay, this is actually pretty good. And I've explored more and more. But I feel like that's one of those things about whiskey, because it is a tougher drink. But when you get past that wall, like you get over that wall, it's really rewarding.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, like the Dorado that I'm drinking, it's a mesquite smoked whiskey. Mesquite already has a polarizing effect on a lot of people. Like some people don't like it for barbecues. Some people absolutely swear by it. With whiskey, there's no difference, but it's got some intensity to it. And every batch is going to be different. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of like a really small scale producer. But yeah, like I cannot drink this quickly. The smoke component has to be taken in a very deliberate measure, or I get the "what are you doing" body response to it. But yeah, with an appropriate pacing, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. Somebody also named Brett Berry in our comment section. This is not that attitude, Adam.
I didn't want to interrupt you in the middle of your comments, but you could drink it quickly. You're choosing not to.
Sam's enjoying his beverage. However you pronounce it.
Adam, what beverage was that? What was it?
Was it? We're going to say Duvet lineage.
I believe it's pronounced age.
Usually other people say the names and read the comments. Why is that on me tonight? You know what? There we go.
Well, guys, thanks everybody for being here, whether you're tuning in live or whether you're catching this on the repeat broadcast. So we were talking about the reason for getting this whole thing together. We have all had fine beverages courtesy of Page Denny. How did you? So obviously, I met her through y'all, but how did y'all meet her?
I met her. Well, been in sports media. I was fortunate enough to meet her husband, Brad, who's an amazing human being, even though he's a Marlins fan, and he made Paige become a Marlins fan too, or something like that, which is not cool of him, you know, because anytime they're like good, they end up trading everyone away afterwards. But met Paige through Brad, and they're two wonderful human beings, great couple, and just fortunate enough to spend some time with them that way. And that's how I met Paige. And also we curled together. We were on a championship curling league team.
Does Brad know?
Yeah, that's how I met Paige. Yeah.
Just real quick, Aaron Manning says drinking beer, now thinking about whiskey. Aaron, you know, there's only one choice here. Do the right thing. Do the right thing.
Drinking beer, but now thinking about whiskey is a great barrel-aged stout name.
I like that. I like that a lot. So sorry, Brett, how did you meet Paige? Did you meet him?
I believe I met Paige originally through Mr. Green, actually, not through the Marlins fan page, because I'm not a Marlins fan. But you know, and one thing to call out as a Marlins, for him being a Marlins fan, as most people in Arizona clearly grew up being, You know, they do trade all the way. They're good players, but I think they still have never lost a playoff series. When they make the playoffs, they win every series, which is a weird fact.
I guess you take it. Like, what was it, 97, 2003, I think, when they won?
97 is definitely right.
But but anyway, Paige Denny, though, she is one of the whiskey. Like, whenever I have a question about whiskey, like, I'm at this restaurant, there's a lot of whiskeys. What should I get? She's one of the people I reach out to because, like I was saying earlier, I'm still learning whiskey. I like it, but I don't know it. But she does know it. We actually have her here today joining the Social Business Drinking Club. Should we bring her in?
Hey, Paige, if you're ready, give us a thumbs up. All right, let's go.
Here in the green room watching us. Hey, Paige.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks. Yeah. And congratulations to Adam Green, newlywed man.
Yeah, I got this thing.
How's the band? Does it feel good?
Yeah, it actually feels looser than it did when I first put it on. I don't know if that's because I've lost weight or just because we'll go with that. I've lost weight.
There you go.
But yeah,
very good.
It's weird to have it occasionally, you know, because like I'm cleaning a dish, so I'm like, oh, that's scratched, but otherwise I'm like, I don't even realize I'm having it. I'm wearing it anymore.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations. I'm so excited. And you guys had a beautiful wedding. I'm so happy I got to see all the pictures. And so congratulations. Yeah. Welcome to Wedded Bliss. It's amazing.
Agreed.
I believe you when you say that. So this is good.
Yeah. Hey, you know, picking a good spouse makes it really easy. So it makes the hard times easier, I guess. There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but anyways, thanks for having me on. I'm so pumped. I know we've been trying to do this for a while, and life gets in the way, man.
It really does. It really, really does. But what are you drinking, I guess, to start? That's what we start people off with.
Okay. So I'm starting off with, well, you guys can't see this, but you can see the shape of the bottle, so you kind of know what it would look like in the store. There we go. So it is a Tucson distillery, my sweet friends Beck and Vlad at Town Under Black in Tucson. So this is their Six Sky Blue Corn whiskey infused with cacao husk.
Okay.
Lovely.
And it is, so you look at the color here, but the bottom will show it better. It's really dark, like really, really, really dark. And you would think that this would be aged. Not a drop of it is aged. That is all from the cacao husk, but it has this really nice, nutty, almost like figgy pudding kind of richness to it. It is phenomenal. And they are distilling in a handmade still that they made. So if you guys are ever in Tucson, they love doing tours. So you should go. I can hook you up. They're the greatest people. And I wanted to start off with something that is local that I love. And I love their stuff. They're super authentic. They're doing strange, unique, wonderful, funky things.
I would like to drink your whiskey.
We'll have you guys over when it's all safe and everybody's good. And you can try whatever you want. I think I'm up to like 150 or 170 bottles now. So.
Damn. All right, hey, we got a comment coming in from Ryan. Said, "What's the proof on that blue corn? I love me some blue corn whiskey."
It's 100 proof.
Woo! All right.
Yeah, and I will say that this has gotten me through many an HOA board meeting.
Oh, man.
Life tip: never run for your HOA board. It's a nightmare.
That's fine.
You know, I'm unfortunately on my HOA board, but it's all on Zoom now. I just turned the camera off and I, just have a triple IPA or two. You're like, that sounds stupid. We're not doing that.
I've become a big fan of the mute button. So, yeah.
I like how you all have the HOA to be like, this is why I drink. I don't have an HOA, and I drink anyway. So what does that say about me?
That you have great values, and this is why we're friends.
We'll go with that. I like it.
I was going to say it means you're a strong, independent homeowner that don't need no man.
There you go. Adam Green don't need no man.
Nope. we could go with that.
Adam Green don't need no man, right, Tammy? That's okay, right?
But Paige, we got you on here. Obviously, we're happy to have you. We've all drank whiskey with you before. You are one of our whiskey experts, and just I don't even know where to start. In terms of like what to ask you as an expert on these things, because there's so much about whiskey. Like Adam and I were talking before about how whiskey is a type of drink that you kind of have to grow into almost, where you take that first sip, you're like, I don't know if I like that. You need that second sip. It's kind of more of a mature type of beverage for you. But once you kind of get over that wall, that hurdle of like, okay, that's a little bit, heavier. It's like, this is really good. Like, how did you get into whiskey? I guess maybe that's the way to start.
Beer. Beer is what got me into whiskey, surprisingly. So there's two reasons that when you take a sip of whiskey, you are like, wow, I don't know if I like this. One is your body telling you you're drinking poison because you literally are. So your body is like, warning, warning, warning. This is not okay, right? Like you're
Danger,
drinking
Will
poison.
Robinson. Yeah.
So you have to like learn to override that evolutionary like protection mechanism by just forcing more down your gullet, and then you eventually get into it, right? But for me, my whiskey journey started in college, and I like got into IPAs and then like really heavy porters and stouts and imperial aged, barrel aged stuff. And I was at Churchill's in Tempe, like 10 or 12 years ago, hanging out, having cigars with some friends. And they were like, hey, we're having a like hangout next door at whatever that bar was next door before it turned into Dirk's or whatever. And we're going to go drink whiskey. Do you want to come? And I was like, sure. I've never had whiskey before other than Jack Daniels, which I think is super disgusting. But sure, why not? So they introduced me to whiskey with Lagavulin 16. And they did it as a joke. They didn't think I was actually going to like it. But from like the second sip, I was hooked.
That's an expensive joke.
Less so then because there weren't tariffs, right? So driving up the price of imported whiskey.
That's a hell of an origin story, though. I like that.
Yeah, it's I owe it all to beer. So because I feel like I think the heavier stuff and the barrel aged stuff really got my palate ready for those kind of unique flavors. So I will say though, I started with scotch and I really stuck with scotch for years. And the only reason I even got into bourbon was because there's a website that used to send whiskey advent calendars. They don't ship to the United States anymore. But Brad ordered me one and it was supposed to be like the scotch one, but he screwed up and he ordered me the American whiskey one, but it ended up being completely fortuitous and serendipitous because I ended up falling in love with American whiskey also. So,
it's funny though. You say like the big beers got you into whiskey, and I know these guys got some questions for you too. But I always would say like I didn't like whiskey, but I liked like bourbon barrel aged and whiskey aged beers. I'm like, wait a minute, I probably do like whiskey. So like not exactly, obviously not the same path as you, but that was part of my realization. Like, yeah, I like these flavors. I just got to get used to that heavy poison down my gullet, like you said. Like, yeah, the flavors work for me. Like very similar. Like I like that. Makes me feel like I'm doing this right. So thank you.
Well, and so two things too. I'm not an expert. I'm a student and a like lifelong learner, like all of you. I have never distilled anything. I feel like in order to be an expert on something, you have to actually have done it, not just enjoyed it. And so I'm by no means an expert, but I appreciate you guys having so much faith in me that you would label me that. And two, there's no wrong way to get into whiskey. There's no wrong way to drink your whiskey. If you want to drink your pappy with some Coke and an ice cube, I will not judge you. I will applaud you for your irreverence because I super respect that. But drink it how you like it. That's kind of the ending tagline on my podcast has always been drink your whiskey how you like it and be well, because like life's too short to get into a pissing contest about whiskey. enjoy it. That's what it's for.
That reminds me of a funny story when I was in downtown Phoenix at Hanny's, and I was at the bar before a concert with a friend, and one of the waiters came by to the bartender and said, "Hey, I'm still waiting on that drink order." I'm like, "Yeah, go ask him again," because he ordered a Blue Label on the rocks with crushed ice. And the bartender's like, "No, go ask him again." He's like, "No, I asked him twice." And he's like, "No, ask him again." He's like, "I did." And he's like, "I want you to ask him again." And basically, like, because it was, for those of you who don't know, that Johnny Walker Blue Label is, that's like a $50 glass probably at a nice place, and to put that on crushed ice is. I hear your point, Paige, but there's also at some point it's like, "Oof, what are you doing?"
Did you guys hear about the guy? This was some years back before Pappy even super exploded like it has now. But I think they talked about it in a documentary. I can't remember which one. About the guy who owns a bar, and he had a bottle of Pappy 23 year, and he decided to make Jello shots with it because people were being such jackasses about it in general, that he was like, "You know what? You guys put way too much stock in this. Whiskey's not that serious. I'm gonna make Jello shots."
I mean,
I would do one of those. I would.
I mean, here's the thing. I would definitely try a Pappy Jello shot, but I mean, once something accumulates some sense of value, whether or not it's original market or gray market, it doesn't mean that thing doesn't have value. But yes, I'm with you in the spirit of taking things seriously or investing personal stock just because of something that you have. That's as dumb as somebody with a big old house or a big old Hummer or the first to market with whatever fancy computer tech. It doesn't matter. You're still you. So yeah, disassociate yourself from your belongings, alcohol included.
Agreed.
Reasonable.
So Paige, I mean, we could. So you said you're not an expert, but let's be honest, you're an expert. We could do some of the super softball stuff, what's the spelling of whiskey versus whiskey, or what makes a spirit a whiskey, what's a bourbon. I mean, do you want to do that kind of stuff, or you want to go deep on this?
It's whatever you guys want to do. I'm down for whatever, a little bit of both, whatever you want.
Well, let's talk about whiskey versus whiskey. What's the deal with the spelling? Why do people make such a big deal about it?
So it's largely based on location. Scotland and Japan, and some brands outside of that in some countries choose to not use the E. So it's WHISKY. Ireland, by and large, the United States and Canada use an E. It's really just, it literally is that simple. And there are makers and distillers that choose to buck that tradition in the country that they're in. So for example, I think it's Maker's Mark is they leave out the E. So, but that's very clearly American, right? So it really is just the maker chooses what they want to do.
To E or not to E? That is the question.
Where's the distance button? Crap. No.
I thought that was good. I've said worse things on this show.
It was so good. It was so good. Hey, Rara Piranha wants to know, tell us Paige's whiskey again, please.
Oh, yeah. So I'm drinking the Six Sky by Town Under Black in Tucson. And it's their blue corn whiskey infused with cacao husk.
It's
very cool.
Nice. It sounds delicious.
It's amazing.
So Paige, I just have one other question for you. Just in the spirit of things that I knew more about. Spirit. Well, yeah, I did not even make that joke on purpose. That's amazing. No, but my question is, I see a lot of folks who are in the upper echelon of harder to find stuff, really getting into the distiller's cuts and the barrel proof and those much higher proof stuff. And what are you what should you expect if you get, some of these 100+ proof whiskeys? Like, are you tasting just hot fire at that point, or like what's the appeal there? I should say.
So, a great place for most people to start is not with Lagavulin 16. That was a unique situation. I do not recommend that being your first whiskey to try, unless you like super strong flavors and like black coffee. But in general, as your palate becomes more adapted to what you're drinking and you start being able to pick out more flavors, you're going to want a lot of the 40% ABV stuff tends to be, it's watered down on purpose, right? Because it helps you kind of get past that alcohol burn and really get to explore a lot of the more subtle flavors. But there's a problem with that in that it's still watering it down. So for people who are starting to dive in deeper into whiskey and really trying to build their palates and understand more, the higher proof allows you to experience it differently, because instead of it being proof down for you, you have the option, particularly with cask strength, to try it straight out of the cask. Essentially, it's usually filtered, but there's been no water added. So you get to try it out of the cask, and then you get to start proofing it down and see. You kind of get to play like blender a little bit, for lack of a better phrase, because you get to start trying it at different proof levels and seeing how the addition of water really changes your experience.
I dig it. I definitely dig it.
And some people drink the higher proof because they want to get drunk. I mean, let's be honest. Sometimes. So.
Yeah, Paige, I had a kind of similar. I'm not the connoisseur that you are of bourbon, scotches, and whiskeys, but I had a similar kind of progression where I actually started with scotch first, which I think maybe was more my like West Coast IPA. I like that kind of hoppy bite. That was maybe my transition. And I've kind of grown to, appreciate, American whiskeys and bourbons more. But you're talking about like introducing things. I'd be curious to know something that I came to really love, and I'd love to get your take and whether it's a good entree into the whiskey world is Japanese whiskeys. And can you explain to people, Japanese whiskeys are a little more citrus, they're a little more citrusy, and there's a kind of a fun backstory, I think, of how that started. And I think that might be, tell me if you think I'm crazy, but I think that's a pretty good entry point, even if it's a little expensive and scarce for somebody that wants to try to broaden their palate.
You make a great point, Brett. I really think that Japanese whiskey, the Japanese have this really incredibly deep understanding of how nature informs what they're doing, in the sense of how they select wood for their casks. But Japanese whiskey basically is owed to a woman named Rita Taketsuru, who was actually born in Japan, or born in Scotland. And she met her future husband living in Scotland. He was Japanese, and he went to Scotland to learn how to make scotch, because he wanted to bring the art of scotch distillation back to Japan. And so that's kind of the really short version of Japanese whiskey origin. And you're 100% right. I think Japanese whiskey is a great entree, and it doesn't have to be expensive. Suntory makes this great whiskey called Toki, and it's really light in color and in body. It is, my friends who don't like whiskey at all tend to at least say, okay, that wasn't terrible. Like, I'm not sure that I'm going to get into this like you, but it's a good launching off point, because it's not offensive. And it doesn't have any one flavor that really overpowers any other. So it's this really nice kind of almost symphony of flavors that are representative in a mild way of what you can experience elsewhere.
It's funny you say that, Paige. I remember you sent me like a sampler pack of whiskeys when I was trying to get into whiskeys, and you sent me some Asian and Japanese like whiskeys. And now I get it. You're like, they're not offensive for people who are just getting into it. Like, I was that guy.
Yeah.
But it makes sense, because it's kind of like, almost, not to bring it back to beer necessarily, like IPAs are really bitter for people. When someone drinks an IPA and they're like, ugh, no, that's too much. But if you give them like a hazy or something else, they can slowly work their way to that point where you can't go from like 0 to 60 just like that. But if you start at 10 miles an hour, okay, I can do that, and I'll get to 20 and get to 30. You build your way up to the, I guess, stronger, quote unquote, more offensive type of whiskeys. Like, you can do that. Like, that's a way to get into it.
Yeah. I mean, that's like how I even got into IPAs was somebody put a Two-Hearted Pale Ale in front of me, and they were like, here, try this. Because I was like, I don't like hops.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hoppy enough to where you could taste the hops. You understood the influence that they have on the beer, but it wasn't so overwhelming where you were like, I'm sucking on a pine tree, So.
No, that's everyone's gateway. Everyone has like their origin for why they got into what they're drinking. And that's what's fun. It's different for everybody.
Yes. That's what makes it so fun.
Yeah. But I guess so you said the first whiskey you had, right? Like, I guess, what's your favorite everyday whiskey?
Oh.
Let's go with that.
Oh man. So for me, whiskey is so much like music in that it's a mood thing. And it, like tonight when I was looking through my bottles, trying to figure out kind of what I wanted to bring to the table to maybe sip and talk about potentially. I kind of started with the sweet, not sweet because it's the Six Guy's not sweet, but it's it has like those chocolate notes, so it feels like dessert without being sweet, if that makes sense. But for me, whiskey is a mood. It's always a mood. So if I'm having a really tough day, I probably would go for like a cask strength, because something that kind of knocks you on your teeth a little bit. It also is just kind of like, okay, what have I not had lately? I like to rotate my bottles, because the corks, if they are there, they do need to be wet occasionally. So I kind of try and like cycle through like a carousel. But if I had to pick one go-to whiskey, that's hard. I'd probably go for something easy breezy. So something like an Eagle Rare or
Ding, ding, ding.
like a Tamdu 10 if I'm doing scotch. Yep, there you go. It's so good.
You have close to 160 in your house. So like, it's not exactly like I have like 5. So it's a lot easier to find my day, everyday whiskey. It's what do I have? You have a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, Paige, just real quick, we do something on the show every once in a while called a privilege check. And when the answer to what's your everyday whiskey is, I don't know, it depends on my mood and how frequently I've wet the corks in my cellar, you get a privilege check. You get a really, really strong privilege check right there.
Thank you. I needed that.
That is a high proof privilege check.
Yeah, that's true. No, you're right.
It's good to get a privilege check though, because it means you obviously have some level of, like, we all have huge beer fridges, right? Like, stocked with tons of beer. You have whiskey, which is probably a better investment if we're being honest with ourselves, because you can open up that whiskey and pour yourself a dram and then put it away for a little while, whereas a beer, you open that beer, you got to drink that shit.
Yeah.
So you get more return on your investment probably for those whiskeys than we do on those beers. So I think privilege check is acceptable. Like, that's accurate, but you're also being smart and economical with your alcohol purchasing, and what your alcohol budget is, you're doing a good job.
I don't have one, which is part of why it escalated so quickly.
Where's that privilege banner again?
But honestly, I haven't bought a bottle. I think I bought 2 bottles of whiskey this year, which by this time, not last year, because I didn't buy much last year either, but by this time, like 2 years ago, I probably would have already bought 10 or 15. And part of that is for me, it's an investment in the podcast, right? Because and it's an investment in me just as a person who loves whiskey. Because I really love to just try a bunch of different stuff to see what's out there. And I have whiskeys I don't like. But somebody will like them. And if they like it, then they can have it if I don't like it. Or they can just come and drink it at my house.
So Brett, when we go for the housewarming, she's going to pour you the ones that she doesn't like.
Oh, you can pick from whatever. Even though you're all wildcats, I'll let you have whatever you want. I'm charitable like that.
But let's talk about that podcast too. You mentioned how you're buying whiskey for the. I'd love to say that we buy beer for our show, but that would be a lie. Like we don't lie to our viewers. It's not like Neatly on the Rocks. You've been doing that for a little while now. What can you tell us about that podcast? Because like we think of you as the expert. You say you're not an expert because you don't make it yourself. But like, how did Neatly on the Rocks get started?
I owe that to my sweet husband. We would go out somewhere and I would just like have a glass of whiskey and start talking to people. And if you've hung out with me for any length of time, I love to have conversations and I love to ask a ton of questions and I love to learn like that. I love it. And I love people. In spite of how people can be really awful, people can also be so amazing. And so it really was him basically saying like, you love to talk to people. You love to talk to people about whiskey. Why don't you have a podcast? And it's kind of gone through multiple iterations. And I'm one of those people that doesn't think quickly. So I need time sometimes. And it originally started as like me just talking about it. And that got kind of boring for me because it wasn't interactive. And then I took a pause. I wasn't sure if I was going to come back. And then I came back and then I started doing more interviews. And then my life got crazy with the job change and banana stuff. And so it took another pause. But I think what it's going to morph into is really more, the longer you do something, the more you find out what you're good at and what you're not good at. And I always have been told by mentors that you lean into what you're really good at and you delegate what you're not good at. Right? Like, doesn't mean you don't try and get better at things, but know your strengths and play into those. And my strength is really asking people questions and getting answers. And so that's really what I'm going to lean into on the podcast more. It's just great interviews with people who are really smart and know a lot more than I do. Like the interview I did with Old Elk and Greg Metz might be my favorite interview I've ever done, ever.
Just Paige, really quick though, like it sounds like you want to lean into journalism. As someone who has a journalism degree, don't do that. This is me as a friend. Don't go into journalism.
Oh, I'm not going to quit my day job, man.
Good. I just want to make
sure. No. Insurance pays way better than podcasting.
Well, I was going to say, you talked about your bottles being a good investment in the podcast, and it's tax deductible then, is all I heard. And it's on the public record for the IRS now.
Well, except I don't have a corporation formed, so I can't deduct it. But I might work on that.
There you go.
But I got to talk to my accountant.
Can you imagine writing off things like whiskey and beer? Like, yes, this is for
so you guys know Ben Rhodes, right?
Uh-huh.
Of Barrel Raised.
Mm-hmm. Really good dude.
A phenomenal human being. Love that guy. Also, I think he gets to write some of that stuff off.
He like makes stuff too. That is like a total business for him.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you guys ever need like engraved anything, Barrel Raised, Ben Rhodes, he's your dude. Phenomenal human.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Hey, Paige, if you have contact information for him, type it in the private chat and we'll post it up.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, Paige, I've got a question for you because you know more about whiskey and bourbon. I know enough to make a fool of myself. I'm gonna I'm curious to get your perspective, or maybe you can talk to people about, I have some here next to me. I brought my whiskey stones in case I wanted to do that. I'd love to hear your perspective on whiskey stones as a yes or, yay or nay, why you would do it, maybe for certain types of whiskeys, kind of inform me and our audience.
Okay. That's a great question. So, whiskey stones are obviously really popular. I don't own any, mostly because I drink most of my whiskey neat. And that's just preference. But I think whiskey stones totally have a place. I think why they sometimes get a bad rap is you're cooling down the whiskey, but you're not adding water to it. What does cooling something down do when you don't dilute it? It changes the esters that you're getting, and it really kind of like, why do you serve crappy beer super cold? So that it doesn't taste as crappy, right? So if you're chilling a whiskey but you're not watering it down, you're really just kind of, I feel like, muffling the flavors a little bit, which is why I don't use them. I prefer to have a little bit of water or a little ice cube that you can kind of like melt a drop or two in, so you get a little bit of that coolness. But the water helps bring out more esters and mix it up a little bit so that you get different flavor compounds that are water soluble that you wouldn't have otherwise if you were like making a cask strength or something like that.
I think that's really useful information for people that are maybe not as attuned to the whiskey world, where actually like watered down, what you're suggesting is not a derogatory term most of the time, especially for high-end things. My understanding is that like a single ice cube or a few drops of water can actually enhance a higher quality thing. But there's the risk of, you don't want to really water it down. That guy that had Blue Label on the crushed rocks that's going to melt very quickly will dilute it to the point of negating the whole point of the high quality whiskey, right? I think that's something that maybe beginners don't know, that like if you ever do like scotch flights or whiskey flights where they'll bring like an eyedropper and a cup of water and a couple of larger ice cubes. Like Adam Green, you had the larger ice cube that's going to melt slower, right? You almost look like you know what you're doing.
I have a round ice cube as well, so there's less surface area. I know, was it the Gladly that does that? They like make the ice cube in front of you, and it's really badass.
They're the only place in America that does that, Adam.
I'm just saying, the only one that some of us know. Jeez, I just like how Brett's like, now he was our beer elitist. Now he's our whiskey elitist too. Like that's where Brett's going. He's gonna look down on people for getting just an ice cube in their whiskey, just looking like no,
that's the right way to do it.
Brett's whiskey woke.
Well, let's say Brett's empathy is inversely proportional to his ability to kick our asses in Peloton.
Are you guys all on the Peloton train now, by the way?
Oh, we are. We are.
Some of us are the caboose in that train.
This may surprise you, Paige. I'm the least in shape out of all of us.
I don't know if you can take that from me, brother.
I don't want to burst your bubble here or like crush your dreams, but
No, you look better in your wedding suit. Well, okay, to be fair, you look better in your fully bespoke, amazing tailored suit than I looked in my cramming my fat ass into the only suit that it would fit for your wedding suit.
Yeah, I would also, but I'll be right back. I got my order of crumble cookies that I had delivered today. I would be in such good shape if it wasn't for beer and really the cookie wars that are happening right now. Like I have crumble. I know, like Paige, you live in the East Valley. There's so many like cookie places that are opening up.
Do I live in the East Valley, or do I live in the South Valley where it's the ghetto?
Oh, well, okay. Well, sorry. Anyway, for people who live in the East Valley, like there's all these gourmet cookies, like artisan cookies are a thing now. There's a crumble 5 minutes from us, but they have like their chilled Twix cookie, which is one of my favorites. They have a birthday cake batter cookie. So I ordered those today, and I'm drinking alcohol. So yeah, I need Peloton to just maintain.
I like that. I like that Adam just blew past, the proportion of bacon that is his diet and the reasons why he's not in shape.
You'd be surprised how little bacon I eat. We don't have any in the house right now, and I'm sorry to admit that, but
Yeah, because you ate it all.
Yeah, I mean, Adam, I don't have any IPAs at the house. That doesn't mean that I don't buy a lot of IPA.
also Ryan here, he gets it.
I agree. They put in a crumble like in the shopping center, literally in walking distance to our house.
You should definitely walk there and back to at least work off some of it.
Yes, 100%.
Like I get my steps in.
Yes. I made the mistake of bringing home a cookie for Brad. And it's my worst nightmare because now all he wants to do is order crumble. And as a completely unrelated note to whiskey, although there's a little connection to it, I'm down 35 pounds from this time last year. And part of that is because I ain't eating cookies and I don't drink as much as I used to. So, 36 is coming quick, and hopefully babies soon. So I'm like trying to get in shape. So I'm still trying to figure out, maybe you guys can help me. How do I have a whiskey podcast when I'm pregnant? Like, that's going to be hard.
This is easy.
I have to have you guys over to taste all my stuff and then just tell me how it tastes.
That's it right there. We'll drink for you.
I'll just smell it and get the vicarious, like.
This sounds like a great thing. This isn't a problem. This is a solution. Like,
I love this idea. I am 100% on board with this. You should get pregnant as quickly as possible.
And the best part is you'll be able to DD us home too because you won't have drank.
There you go.
There's no downside to this.
Everyone's a winner.
And I get to stay up and have heartburn and the whole nine. Yeah.
Sounds like a wonderful idea.
Oh, man. Well, hey, friends, we're getting close to the end of that hour mark. But before we go, we still have a lot of questions that we want to ask. But for all of our loyal viewers, we're so curious to know, what was your first whiskey? We talked about it. Probably wasn't Lefroy 16, if I had to guess. But what was your first whiskey that really made you sit up and notice? And what's your holy grail? What's the whiskey that you're looking for? Maybe you had it. Tell us about that. Maybe you're still looking for it, but what's going to do it for you? Or what do you hope does it for you? Paige, what's your holy grail? Let's set the bar real high right off the bat here.
Okay, so we're going real high. It's something I'll never, ever, ever get to try again. But the bar it will never be topped. Like, I dare somebody, this is a dare that I want somebody to take me up on. I dare you to tell me that this is not the best whiskey I've ever had by showing me a better whiskey. When we were in Scotland a few years ago, we went and did a tasting at Lagavulin, and we went in February, which is unusual. People don't do that because it's cold, and it was. And they cracked open a cask of Lagavulin that was 52 years old. And I got to try it.
Damn.
Was
it like a
happen, or
at that point?
It was so crazy. It was like really light in color. So sometimes like the wood, the wood imparts color and the wood takes away color. So after a while, like that give and take, sometimes the color disappears. But it was just the greatest thing I've ever tried.
Somewhere Ron Swanson just orgasmed.
I'm sure he got to try that when he was there. And what's so funny is they asked us, they were like, "Oh, you're Americans. Did you hear about us on Parks and Rec?" And I was like, "No, I knew about you before that." But Ian MacArthur, who does a lot of the tours and stuff, and he's a fourth generation Lagavulin employee, which is pretty remarkable. He said he didn't even know who Ron Swanson was. Didn't know anything about Parks and Rec. And here comes Nick Offerman, like he's a total fanboy of Lagavulin. He really is in love with Lagavulin. So I feel like Nick Offerman is my spirit animal.
Was that just a random like tapping that they did essentially? Like you just happened to be there when they decided, hey, we're going to pour some of this, or how did that?
So what's crazy is it was a hogshead, which is like, if you know barrel sizes, hogsheads are huge. They're gigantic. And they're not often used in the United States, but they're used much more in Scotland. And this barrel was getting closer to the bottom, and it had been on the rack for so long that the bottom of the barrel was flat, so they couldn't rotate it anymore. And a Chinese businessman had come in and said, I will pay you $500,000 for what is left in this barrel. And they said no, because Diageo don't need your money. So so they gave it to us because we were Americans and we came in the off season, and it was like a reward for being brave enough to come to the Isle of Isla in the middle of winter.
Wow.
So cool. I'm never going to be able to top that story. So really cool.
I mean, how many of those amazing privilege check knowledge? Yes, yeah, no, good call. But how many of those stories, like with beer or whiskey or great wine, any of that? How many of them end up being right place, right time? I feel like all of mine are. Like, I don't merit the finer things in life that I've been able to try, but oh my God, I've certainly been in the right room at the right time.
Yes. Yep.
Adam Ledford, what's your first and holy grail?
Oh man, so I think in the comments I accidentally posted it as social distance, but my first whiskey was Jim Beam, and I used it. Yeah,
that's Adam Green's holy grail.
And these statements do not reflect the collective of Social Distance Drinking Club. Jim Beam, we're happy to have you sponsor us. I just won't partake. I was dumb and I was in college and I drank way too much of it, and I can't even look at it anymore. But Holy Grail, like I'm such a noob when it comes to that stuff. Like some of the higher end Japanese stuff I would love to get to try just because I haven't. I was in the right room when Pappy 23 got opened, and I got to try that, and it was pretty amazing. But I mean, realistically, I'll be a basic bish and say, let me get some of that BTAC stuff. You know, let me try some Buffalo Trace Antique Collection. Like, I'm easy. I don't have a whale. I don't have a grail.
Lorenzo's laughing at you, by the way.
Yeah, of course, and you should, Lorenzo. I'm a noob, and I know it. What about you, Brett?
You know, I'm honestly not sure what was my first one that I had. I'm sure it was like Jack or Jim Beam. And when I was younger in my going out days, Jack Daniels was something that would make me. I'm a relatively large guy that can generally drink a lot. And if I had like a shot of Jack Daniels, I would be like, why do I feel like I had like 10 beers? Because I feel terrible. You know, the first thing, and this is, you know, speaking of noobs, like the first time I was starting to explore a little bit more beyond the Jack and Jim Beam kind of thing, I actually had a weird infatuation with Johnny Walker Black when I was in college, because it was just like a little bit elevated. And you know, like I mentioned before, like I think it, like the Scotch thing and like Black Label was a little, it's got a little bit more bite, which I was open to at a relatively young age. And, you know, not expensive, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. You know, I think I don't know enough to know what my true like holy grail whale of a whiskey or bourbon would be. Though I have always kind of had a little bit of an obsession in it to be a basic bitch. You know, a well-aged Pappy I would love to have a full glass of at some point.
It's real good from what I understand. Without a lot of basis of comparison, I thought it was great.
What about you, AG?
I don't remember what my first whiskey was. Like, I do remember having a Three Wise Men whiskey shot on my 21st birthday. I'm like, this is awful. Please give me that mudslide Applebee's. Like, I'll admit that. I was 21. Also, that mudslide's still delicious. It's not alcohol. But
Your 21st birthday was at Applebee's?
it was a friend of mine in college.
I'm sorry, I just can't. We just need a moment here.
No, I got to drink before I was officially 21 because my friend was a server there, so he served me. And I was still 20-ish. I just wasn't so. No, that's why I was at Emily's. I went back to the apartment and I drank, and it was a night. But
You were living in Tucson at this time, right?
yes, I was.
You didn't go to the buffet like every self-respecting person living in Tucson does for their 21st birthday?
Do you know me? You think I have self-respect?
Well, you are a wildcat, so I should have known.
Like we were at Applebee's just because my buddy, like we also our apartment was across the street basically from Applebee's. We were at North Point. But no, so I remember having a Three Wise Men. I thought it was terrible. And then I just went back to the apartment and drank whatever they gave me at that point, but I don't have a holy grail. Like I'll say I have this here. Paige, you had told me to go to High West when I was in Utah. And I thought High West was great. Yippee-ki-yay. I did a sample, and Utah has their weird laws where you can only get like a certain amount per time. So I had to do like 2 ounces on like two 2-ounce pours and go. And I did a whole flight. And the last one I had, I thought was the best, which was Yippee-ki-yay. Yeah, cool. I'm full screen now. Yeah, that's fair. That's how it was. On my 21st birthday, yes, that's how it was. But
whoa.
I don't know what that happened. I do not know what that happened.
And now I'm down here. I'm not that
Tours.
But no, like I remember going to Yippee or to High West. I'm like, these are good. Then I got to Yippee. I'm like, oh, this is the best one I've had today. It was also the last one I had, so I might have been drunk at that point. But I bought it, and I guess they don't make it anymore, and I'm afraid to open it now. Like this is still has the wrapping on it because I don't know when to open this thing.
Whenever you feel like it.
That's a good answer. We could take the banner off now. It's irrelevant. Like we moved on, but I don't have like a holy grail type of. Damn it! I don't have a holy grail because I don't know enough about whiskey to have a holy grail. To me, it's like if someone like you, Paige, or Adam, or even Brett says you have to try this whiskey, I'm down. But I don't have like, oh, if I don't try this, I'm missing out. Like I'm just the people who know whiskey. I will drink a really good whiskey if they say you should try this. Like I'll be happy to do it and explore just like I do with beer.
So Lorenzo, he says my first whiskey is at 6 or 7 years with Seagram 7, and man, I sure hope you're talking about like the age of the bottle and not like the child abuse version of how we can interpret that statement right now.
I feel like this was like a teething story. I mean, are you teething at 6? I don't think that's a thing, is it?
I mean,
did you have a cold? I want to know now. Were you 6 or 7 years old? What's going on? Did you grow up in Germany? Like, I have so many questions.
Lorenzo, are you okay? That's what we're really asking. Are you okay? Do you feel safe?
Hey, Paige. I know we're way into the time here.
I got time if you guys got time. So
well, I wanted to
open up Yippee-ki-yay if that's what we want to do here tonight.
Open it.
Open it.
Well, while Adam opens that, I want to get your professional opinion. Whoa, we're wasting. I want to get your professional opinion, Paige. I was recently gifted this by someone, and I want to know how good or bad of a gift was this bottle of rye whiskey I got. It's Redemption rye whiskey.
I've never had it, so I can't tell you.
Open it. Open it.
But if
I already have.
If you want to give me a sample, then I can give you my feedback.
Yeah, it's what Mr. Green gave me as a groomsman gift.
Oh, so we're judging him. Okay.
Yeah. He disappeared, so it kind of ruined my whole gag. Now I have to drink a nice whiskey.
Come on, show up to be on the chopping block, bud.
All right. So we have heard back. In fact, Lorenzo was talking about he was that young when he had his first whiskey. He had his first wine at 5 years old. And I don't know how to win this game of one-upsmanship, sir. I think that you did it.
Hey, Adam Ledford, can we put this comment from Lorenzo up there and then have Adam Green pronounce it?
Nope Age, I think is how.
I believe it's Nopage.
I believe it is no pay duvet. Do inside jokes work as much as I hope they do?
I think you do. Oh, hey, Robert Perron. Thanks for staying tuned. I'm a fan of Redemption Rise. So, Brett, you opened it. What did you think of it?
It's definitely got a little more kick than my my Eagle Rare, but it settled down a little bit. I had some earlier.
Well,
it's quite nice.
I mean, that's part of the deal, though, right? Like rye is gonna be spicier. You know what's super fascinating about rye, to have like a side note here, and you know who taught me this is the guys at the guy and gal at Town Under Black. I had never gotten to try rye like on its own, and grains are sprouted before they're used in distillation, and so they have a malting floor and they malt their own. They sprout their own grains, and rye sprouted is sweet. It is not spicy. It's the yeast reacting with the rye that causes spice to show up in the whiskey.
Nice.
That's interesting. Also, rye is maybe my favorite whiskey for like an old fashioned, which I believe is the traditional spirit to go in an old fashioned, because I think that like extra kind of bite and spice to it really, for me, balances out the sweetness of an old fashioned in a really delightful way. I know Mr. Green loves an old fashioned as well. How's that one treating you, Adam?
Well, I do love an old fashioned. That's true. Whether it's made at a bar that knows how to make an old fashioned or made by my Drinkworks, which has a pod. But no, I'm doing my official High West class. We did buy glassware there.
Love it. What do you think? Well, you already had it.
This is basically the same as it was the last time I had it, where I had so many whiskeys before it. To me, it was the best one I had all night. Like, I brought 4 out here, and this is the 4th one. I like it.
No, Adam, let's really dig in on these tasting notes, my friend. What do you really think?
I know what you're looking for here.
No, just really, just unfettered from the soul. It releases your inner whiskey taster, Adam.
It tastes like. I can't do it. It tastes good. If they stopped making this one, though, so I got to share it with you all at some point, because they don't make Yippee-Ki-Yay anymore. Like, I remember seeing that in a tweet. I'm like, wait, I know that whiskey. I have it. And High West blends stuff, right, Paige? Like, they blend whiskeys together. Some people are kind of against that, but obviously it's good.
Yeah, I mean, they do source their liquid. Not all of it. It seems like they're starting to move towards their own production. But look, I mean, making whiskey is not hard. Making good whiskey is incredibly difficult. And it is as much science as it is art. And there is art not just in the distillation, but in the aging process. So High West will source barrels, but then they'll also age them, finish them. And there's a difference in climate and altitude that impacts the whiskey, and blending is an art in and of itself. Anybody who's ever had a compass box, if you like scotch and you see a compass box on a menu, absolutely try it. The guy who's the blender at Compass Box is like, his palate's insane. So it takes talent to do all of the things. And there's nothing wrong with sourcing liquid. Just be honest about it. And they are.
No, I think that's a great point. It's like there are tons of different ways to get a wine in a bottle. There are tons of different ways to get a beer into a keg or into package, and whiskey is no different. You know, like if you have a reliable, high quality source and you're aiming for consistency, absolutely. But you know, if you can source it on your own, then even more power to you. Yes, because you're taking the absolute hardest difficulty level of playing that game. So yeah, well, Paige, thank you so much. So a little bit of behind the curtain. We're gonna keep hanging out and drinking whiskey, but we want to close the show because we appreciate your patience. Throw in the comments anything else. If we haven't heard your first whiskey, if we haven't heard your Grail whiskey, toss that in there as well. But Paige, can you stick around for a little bit after the show?
You got it, guys.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, all right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. This has been episode 101
Wow.
on a weird logarithmic scale. Thanks for tuning in, you guys.
Thank you.
I expected Adam to say tasting notes of burning deliciousness.